Thank you, Excellency, for giving time for this interview. We are now ending 2017 and looking forward 2018.
Right.
Let me start with a very challenging issue that Myanmar has been facing with Rakhine.
Right.
Rakhine crisis has been making news
Yes.
for all the wrong reasons. And what is the Washington position on the Rakhine crisis?
Well, we all along, for many years, as you know, we have wanted Myanmar to succeed. And what I mean by that is we've been on the side of the people here who've been working so hard and sacrificing so much for democracy and peace and prosperity. And we've been pleased to see a lot of progress in recent years. The Rakhine crisis is an immense challenge, not just because the international community cares about it, but really for Myanmar and what kind of country Myanmar wants to be. And it's a very difficult, complex challenge. We recognize that. The way we see it is there is long-standing underlying problems there that I think the government has recognized and asked the advisory commission led by Kofi Annan to help them address. And then you had those ARSA attacks, first in October of last year and then in August 25th, which we've condemned and continue to condemn. That was a terrible thing to do that started this latest round of violence. But then what we saw in response to that is that the security forces who had the right and appropriately had to go in and deal with the security threat, frankly responded with disproportionate force. And increasingly over time, we see with very severe human rights violations that Secretary of State Tillerson has determined constituted ethnic cleansing. So I know nobody here wants to hear that, of course, and we understand that. But we feel like as a friend and a country that really wants Myanmar to succeed, we have to be honest about these things. And also, you know, as a country, we've had plenty of our own difficult chapters in our history. But we think it's important to confront it, address it, investigate it seriously and independently, and try to have accountability. I think that's how Myanmar as a country can move forward and build its democracy. So our hope is to be a good partner and help the people of Myanmar as you grapple with this.
My understanding is the message from the Myanmar authorities, either civilian government or the military, is that if there is any human rights violations did happen, please give us evidence,
right,
and we will deal with. That is the kind of the message that is coming out from the Myanmar authorities. And that is, what do you think of that message?
We have heard that message, and there is a lot of evidence. A lot of groups have collected significant evidence. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Médecins Sans Frontières have all done extensive research on this, and I'm sure would be pleased to present their findings to the government, and we encourage the government to be open and welcome that. But the other point is that these allegations took place on Myanmar soil in Rakhine. Journalists, investigators have not had access. So the way to get the evidence is to allow that access. To say, please give us evidence, but we won't give you access, doesn't really make, frankly, that much sense to me. I think if you want the evidence, then the way to go ahead and to clear things up for everybody, Myanmar people and the international community, is let in a credible international investigation. Let in journalists and others to go see and ask questions and find out the facts. I think everybody should want the facts, but not allowing access is a huge obstacle to that.
Yeah. I think the Rakhine crisis also puts the civilian government in a very difficult situation. The question is sanctions that United States as a nation is thinking over. My question is, are the sanctions appropriate response to such crisis or such situation?
Well, I think a lot of things need to happen in response to this crisis. And again, not as a favor to the international community, but for Myanmar's own healthy democracy. And so I think a credible independent investigation is an accountability based on that investigation is critical, as well as an honest dialogue among the Myanmar people about how did this happen and what can we do to make things better. So I think that's most important. In terms of the U.S. role or sanctions, Secretary Tillerson, when he was here, did stress the importance of accountability and did talk about the possibility of some kind of sanctions on those who we believe were directly involved in these atrocities. And it is something we are looking at, the idea of sanctioning individuals who we believe played a role directly in these human rights violations. We're not talking about reimposing the old broad so-called Burma sanctions regime. That is really not what anyone's talking about. It's possible targeted sanctions as a means of showing accountability or gaining accountability for what has happened.
Yeah. Whatever we are able to know, that shows that Myanmar government, based on the bilateral agreement between Bangladesh, is preparing, making necessary preparations to accept the refugees from the area to return to their areas or to their places. There are activities going on in Rakhine. So what do you like to see? How do you like to see the kind of the process to be transparent, accountable, also satisfactory, or also satisfactory to the international community, which is asking the Myanmar government to get that process to be accountable, transparent?
Right. No, it's a very good question. We've certainly welcomed the government's commitment to welcome back on a voluntary basis those people who fled and who want to come back. We think that's a positive step. Going forward, of course, it will be critical to create an environment that encourages people to come back. That means making sure that they feel safe, but also that the other communities living in Rakhine also feel safe and security, because everyone right now is quite concerned and feeling insecure. But also addressing some of these underlying issues, the institutionalized discrimination that so many people were suffering from for a long time. So I think to the extent that the government is able to address those underlying problems, as it's committed to do, and create a security environment for people to come back, then I hope that will happen in a way that people do feel comfortable coming back and are able to live in harmony with their neighbors in Rakhine State. As you mentioned, I think transparency on that is really important, and ideally the government will allow not only international press but particularly local media to go up and have good access and be able to follow these developments very closely. I think that benefits the Rakhine people, the other ethnic minorities up there, as well as those in the Muslim community who might want to come back.
Yeah. Rakhine crisis is part of the bigger issue, which is the peace process in Myanmar.
Right.
How do you view the progress on Myanmar's peace process?
Well, I think we're very engaged on that and also very supportive, because we agree with the state councilor that a successful peace process is critical for Myanmar's success and prosperity over time. So we're strong supporters. It's a slow process. I think everybody knows that, and plenty of people have complained about it. I think it's partly slow just because of the complexity. You have so many different groups involved that there's no easy way or fast way to make this happen. What we hope to see is continued dialogue, continued efforts to reach out and understand each other's positions. We think this is very important. And what we'd also love to see is an end to the fighting. I mean, even as we speak, there's quite significant fighting going on again in Kachin. Artillery, airstrikes that we're hearing about. And that, to me, does not help create the trust that's necessary. So we would love to see and hope for an end to that fighting as quickly as possible, and then redoubled efforts on all sides to reach out have open dialogue and gradually build trust so that the peace process can move ahead.
What can the United States help in the Myanmar's peace process in terms of the discussions, in terms of bringing the partners together, because there are many groups involved, both from the ethnic minorities or nationality side and also from the authority sides, and also there are questions of civil society groups, women participation in the peace process. So all what can the United States help in the process?
It's a good question, and what we're trying to do, first we recognize this is a Myanmar process. So the Myanmar government and the ethnic armed groups and others are obviously in the lead on this, and our role is not to interfere, but where we can support, we do. And the way we support is a couple ways. One, talking to the different actors, which we do regularly, trying to help promote understanding, promote dialogue, trying to convince people to continue talking to each other. That's just sort of basic diplomacy that we're doing on a regular basis. Also, trying to help people learn more about federalism and some of the issues that you'll have to grapple with as you move forward in the political dialogue. So, for example, we brought a group of people from the government, the military, the ethnic groups, civil society to the United States to study federalism. We had a follow-up conference in Naypyidaw a few months ago, again, talking about federalism. Not to say you should do it our way so much, but just to explore some of the issues. So we think there's more we can do in that to help you look at, decide what issues do we need to resolve, what are some models that have worked in other countries. We think we can play a helpful role in that process.
Yeah. I'd like to go into the question of media freedom and development in Myanmar, which I think we agree very crucial part for the democratization and for democracy in Myanmar. Your embassy made a very quick statement following the arrest of recent arrest of two writers, journalists. What is your position now on their case, particular case?
Sure. Well, again, we look at this as we're a friend who wants Myanmar to succeed. And for a democracy to succeed, there has to be a strong and independent media, and they have to be able to do their jobs. This is just absolutely fundamental to any democracy. And what we saw in this case is journalists doing their work, trying to get information that they could share with the Myanmar public, and being arrested for it. It's very troubling. Not for us so much, but for Myanmar, which is why we've spoken out quite strongly on this. Our understanding is they were doing their jobs. They were collecting information, as you well know, as journalists are supposed to do, for the benefit of the Myanmar people. So we think their arrest is very troubling. We have urged that they be released. First, no one's had access to them, which is also very troubling. It's been more than a week since they were arrested. Where are they? Are they okay? We don't even know that. So the first thing we would hope to see immediately is that their lawyers, their family be granted access to them, and that they be reassured that they're in good health. But second, I think it's really important, frankly, that they be released. Again, not as a favor for the United States, but because this is important for the health of Myanmar's democracy.
Yeah, they are charged in the FIR with the State's Secrets Act, which can jail them for up to 14 years.
Right.
Apart from statement and your position, know what the United States government will be doing specifically with the Myanmar authorities for their immediate release?
Well, we'll continue to talk to the Myanmar authorities and urge their release, and pointing out, as I've just said, that Myanmar has to make its own decisions about this, of course, but this law under which they were arrested is a law from the colonial days that, frankly, with all due respect, is not consistent with modern democratic practices. Again, journalists need to be able to do their jobs if democracy is to succeed. I have no doubt that the leadership of this country wants democracy to succeed. I know they're very committed to it. So I hope that they will do all they can to secure the release of these people. And then, again, this is a decision for the Myanmar people, but I would hope that Parliament would take another look at some of these laws and see if they're really appropriate for a democracy.